Hey everyone. I am here with some follow-up to the story we posted last night about the 3.0 magnitude earthquake that struck just south of here in Hasbrouck Heights around 10 o'clock on Tuesday evening. Since our initial report, the U.S. Geological Survey has put out some additional information, and we've had some additional reports come in. So we're going to go over that now. First things first. I want to mention that the USGS did update the location of this earthquake.
Ho, ho, ho!
Originally, they pegged it as being very close to the borough of Hasbrouck Heights and right along the border with Wood Ridge. But based on additional data that came in, they moved the epicenter over to Hasbrouck Heights proper. Either way, the folks in Wood Ridge got a little bit of a scare last night. They probably thought it was them. In fact, I've seen some reports on social media saying that some people in Wood Ridge actually felt it more than those in Hasbrouck Heights.
Ho, ho, ho!
Again, because the epicenter is where the quake actually starts. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's where it was felt the strongest. That would be further down the line. In terms of the magnitude, it remains a 3.0. And in terms of the depth, it's still 10 kilometers, about 6.2 miles deep. For perspective, last night's earthquake was the second one to hit New Jersey in the past 2 weeks.
Ho, ho, ho!
The first was a 3.5 magnitude quake that hit on July 20th. That was centered in Greenwich, not too far from the Delaware Water Gap. And it was felt as far away as Philadelphia, Harrisburg, Allentown, and even New York City. Now, yesterday's earthquake was a little bit closer to the densely populated New York metro area. And it was actually the second one to hit in Bergen County in less than a month. On July 4th, there was a 2.7 magnitude earthquake centered in Paramus.
Ho, ho, ho!
It was also felt as far away as Manhattan, Westchester County in New York, and even Connecticut. Now, the good news is that according to the USGS, earthquakes in the range of 1.4 to 3.9 are considered light in their perceived shaking scale. There is generally no risk of potential damage from quakes in that range. I am sure last night a lot of people probably looked up to see if there were any buildings on fire or anything like that, but there was no damage reported from last night's earthquake.
Ho, ho, ho!
The majority of the 10,000-plus responses to the USGS Did You Feel It survey said that they either didn't feel anything or they felt weak to light shaking. Some people, though, did report feeling light, strong, or strong shaking. One person in Hasbrouck Heights reported feeling light, strong shaking. 2 in Paramus reported light shaking. 1 in Hackensack reported light, strong shaking. 1 in Montvale reported light shaking.
Ho, ho, ho!
Then we get a little bit farther away. We go into Saddle River. Another one reported light, strong shaking. Glen Rock, light shaking. And then over to Midland Park. We had 3 people report light shaking. So that's kind of where we're at right now with this. But I do want to point out that the USGS has identified fault lines in the area where yesterday's earthquake occurred. This is actually not uncommon in this part of the country.
Ho, ho, ho!
Intraplate earthquakes like this that happen in the middle of the continent, as opposed to the west coast where you get a lot of earthquakes along the San Andreas Fault, which is a pretty well-known fault line. These intraplate ones happen in the middle of the continent, and they were usually caused by old faults that have been reactivated. Now, I reached out to Columbia University's Earth Institute. Their seismologist was actually out of the office.
Ho, ho, ho!
He's on vacation, ironically enough, in Greece, of all places, where there was a major earthquake earlier this week. But I did leave him a message. He did call me back before he left. And he said, yes, these types of earthquakes are fairly common. He said they're usually caused by ancient faults that run through the Appalachian mountain chain, which extends all the way up into New England. And they've just been reactivated. Faults don't just pop up overnight. They're always there.
Ho, ho, ho!
They've just kind of gone dormant for long periods of time. And then sometimes they get reactivated, and you get an earthquake like this. Now, the question becomes, are these earthquakes related to the larger 4.8 earthquake that we had back in April? So far, the USGS says no. They say that all of the earthquakes that have happened since the one in April are aftershocks of the one in April. But, as we mentioned, this one was 155 miles away from the one back in April.
Ho, ho, ho!
Still pretty close. So again, the USGS says they're not related, but technically they could be. It's just too early to tell at this point. Another thing that I want to mention is that we've gotten a lot of questions from people who live in basements about whether it is safe for them to be down there. Well, in general, it is safe. There's no problem being in a basement during an earthquake. In fact, if there's a building that might collapse, you'd be better off in a basement than anywhere else.
Ho, ho, ho!
The main thing is if you're in a basement and the earthquake happens, make sure you stay there. Don't try to run outside. Of course, this is all hypothetical, but if there is a building that's going to collapse, it's probably going to collapse within the first few seconds of the earthquake happening. So you want to hunker down and stay there until it's over. Once it's over, then you can make your way to the surface. But in general, basements are safe.
Ho, ho, ho!
Any aftershocks? Well, we'll just have to wait and see. The good news is that the vast majority of aftershocks tend to die out very quickly. They don't stick around for very long. But again, it's too early to tell at this point. We just had this earthquake yesterday. It's still kind of early in the process. The USGS is continuing to collect data. They're gonna keep tabs on this and see if any more earthquakes happen in the coming days, weeks, and months.
Ho, ho, ho!
Meanwhile, we'll be here following it up as well. I would encourage anyone who lives in the area and felt this earthquake to report it to the USGS. It really helps them get a better idea of how widespread the shaking was and what the real magnitude of the earthquake was. They originally pegged it at 2.7 and then bumped it up to 3.0 based on additional data. So it really helps them out. And let me just say this.
Ho, ho, ho!
Yes, it's always a little bit jarring when you're in your house and the lights start shaking. And yes, it probably woke a lot of people up last night. And I understand that people are naturally going to be a little concerned whenever something like this happens. But the good news is that we're in a part of the country where this is relatively rare, but it does happen from time to time. So I think it's good for people to be aware of what to do in case there is a bigger earthquake.
Ho, ho, ho!
So, of course, drop, cover, and hold on. But also have a plan with your family. Make sure everybody knows what to do if there is an earthquake. And again, the vast majority of earthquakes that happen in this part of the country are not very strong. We've been very lucky in that regard. Knock on wood. But it's always good to be prepared just in case. That's it for now.
Ho, ho, ho!
We'll continue to follow this story and see if any more earthquakes happen in the area. Anyone with additional information should send us an email. You can reach us through our website. Otherwise, we'll be back later today with more news. Thank you for watching.
Ho, ho, ho!